From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. Samuel Moncada, Venezuela's ambassador to the United Nations, has said the United States will fail in its attempt to insult Latin America. His comments come in response to an intervention by U.S. Vice President Mike Pence at the OAS, where he urged leaders of the region to impose sanctions on Venezuela until President Nicolas Maduro leaves office. He recalled Article 20 of the OAS Charter, where any kind of foreign pressure is forbidden. He accused the U.S. government of extortion, threatening the region and humiliating its members. Moncada called on Latin American governments to respond with dignity and reject any threat of foreign intervention.
Today, the Vice President of the United States comes here to commit an international crime, violating the OAS and UN charters. And people applaud him, and he even says he does it in the name of God. I want to respond to the US Vice President, who represents the most racist and intolerant government of this country in the last decades. The most aggressive and humiliating in the region. It's hard to remember a president that has insulted the region so much. President Trump has used the most denigrating words to refer to member countries of this organization. I won't repeat those insults here, but he's done it, and you all know it.
Pence also announced the United States will impose new economic sanctions on Venezuela and continue to bring more pressure against the country's government. He went on to encourage countries in the region to suspend Venezuela from the OAS and to take measures against the government of Nicolas Maduro. Meanwhile, thousands gathered in Caracas in an event to support President Maduro and rejected the U.S. sanctions.
They can give us all the sanctions they want. We're a free country. We have freedom in our blood. Here is the people of Chavez. The people of Venezuela are fighting and alert to the call of our president. And on May 20th, we will all head out to vote. To the international community, they have to understand that this is reality, that we love Venezuela, that we know that we are rich, and that's why they want to sanction us. I'm part of a jobs program, and I'm proud of this country, and we will always support our president.
At the same time, Venezuela's opposition continues to fracture internally over the decision of whether or not to participate in the May 20th elections. In a video released today, Jesus Chuo Torrealba Rodriguez, who was Secretary General of the Democratic Unity Roundtable, or MOOD, as recently as February 2017, announced his support for candidate Henry Falcón.
We believe that to vote, and to vote for Falcón, can bring about the necessary political conditions to put Venezuela into a new democratic political direction, a direction that is able to convert the social majority into political power.
And on Monday, 5 members of the country's opposition-dominated National Assembly announced the creation of a new faction within the Assembly, which would also participate in the May 20th elections and throw its support behind Falcón. This goes against the grain of other sections of Venezuela's opposition, which released a statement last week saying that citizens should abstain from participating in the election. And a Labour delegation from Canada will be heading to Venezuela next week to act as international observers for the May 20th elections. To find out more, we are joined now by Donald Foreman of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. Hello, Donald. Can you tell us why you decided to observe these elections in Venezuela?
Well, for the main reason, you know, in Canada, we're always given one side of the story, and a lot of it comes from the south of the border. And in Labour in Canada, we believe that, you know, a sovereign right to a country to hold an election is their right to do so. And our foreign minister has already came out and said that they won't recognize the Venezuelan election. So we thought it was important to have a group of people down there to actually see the reality on the ground and to look at the transparency and the voter turnout and the election process in Venezuela so we could return to Canada and report exactly what we saw there.
So what is the connection with the Canadian labor movement and the elections in Canada? What is the importance of going to these elections?
Well, for the labor movement in Canada, we believe in international solidarity, and the union I belong to and many other unions are involved with many countries around the world when it comes to international solidarity. So our connection is with the workers in Venezuela. When we're there, we'll be meeting with workers in Venezuela prior to the elections. And that way we can report back to our workers what's really happening on the ground in Venezuela.
And so can you explain to us what are the tasks, what are the actions that your group of members of the delegation will be tasked to do once in Caracas?
Once we're there, we'll be meeting with other trade unions in Venezuela, and we'll be, asking them questions on the transparency and the fairness of the elections. We'll also be taking a close look at the elections, the voter turnout, the freedom of the press in Venezuela, and the actual sort of polling station and how voting is done. It wasn't long ago that we all read the glowing review from the Carter Institution calling Venezuela some of the best elections held anywhere in the world. All of a sudden, for some strange reason, we have the West now saying that the elections aren't legitimate. And we need a fair and honest reporting back to Canadian workers as to the actual system that's taking place there.
Thank you very much, Donald. Indeed, we need fair and true reporting on this. Thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So we'll be speaking to Donald Foreman from Canada on the elections in Venezuela. As we stay in Venezuela, President Maduro signed several agreements with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas during his two-day visit to the country. Maduro and Abbas have agreed to begin carrying out commercial transactions using the petro-cryptocurrency and agreed on a creation of a binational fund to finance technological and industrial development between both nations. They will also work to jointly develop mining projects. Maduro also urged continued solidarity with the Palestinian people and its state, saying that more should be done to stop the massacre of Palestinians.
When it comes to the Palestinian cause, we don't play. Palestine has true friends here in Venezuela, loyal friends, and the Arab people must know that they have a revolutionary government, a true friend to advance the future of a united Arab world, an Arab world in peace, an Arab world rebuilt with a free Palestine, sovereign, independent. Soon I'll be in Palestine. Before year's end, I'll be in Palestine.
And we go to Colombia, where authorities are tightening security around ex-president and current senator Álvaro Uribe after the Colombian Interior Minister announced there were threats against him.
The information we have was shared with ex-president Uribe and the National Unity for Protection, and the National Police took immediate measures to tighten the security network around ex-president Álvaro Uribe.
And violence between the National Liberation Army, the ELN, and the Popular Liberation Army, the ELP, continues in the Colombian northeast region of Catatumbo. 2 people were killed over the weekend, and one of them was a former FARC militant. Over 150,000 people have been affected by this conflict between the 2 armed groups, which are located in the region of the country that borders with Venezuela. 2 important processes are coming up for Colombia: the implementation of the peace agreement signed by the FARC and the government, and the restart of the talks between the government and the National Liberation Army, announced for this week.
President Juan Manuel Santos delivered a report on Saturday about the meeting with the Commission of Promotion and Verification for the peace agreement. He highlighted the role that 8.6 million victims of the armed conflict have had.
The victims have been the backbone of this process of respect for human rights, the right for the truth, the right for justice, and for this to never happen again. This has been a very important part of the negotiation.
The reintegration of former combatants, the demining, and the legislative developments for the implementation of the agreement have also been part of the agenda.
We made a balance on the legislation, the constitutional, legal and institutional reforms, so the state can honor the agreement. We have made great progress, and we still have 7 laws left in the Congress that are urgent.
Rodrigo Londoño, leader of the FARC political party, assured that they are talking about the important issues to move the implementation of the agreement forward.
We have made a report about the process and what has been achieved, which is quite a lot, and the difficulties that remain. We have taken decisions to join forces along the forces in Colombia that want the process to advance. We also have the support of the international community to accelerate the implementation of the agreement in Havana.
Social leaders confirmed that they are accompanying the implementation of the agreement with the FARC, but also the talks with the ELN in order to achieve peace in Colombia.
The challenge has always been assuring society's participation, and us, as part of Colombian society and social movements, have made a lot of effort for a long time to have a key role in the peace process.
At the end of the meeting, this letter from the former Uruguayan president, José Pepe Mujica, sent to Jesús Santrich from the FARC political party, was revealed. He stated his concern about his delicate state of health and the capture in order to extradite him. He also made a call on the government to comply with and safeguard those who were behind the peace process in Colombia, including social leaders.
Let's take a short break, but we'll be back just after a video from our multimedia colleagues. Welcome back. Peru's public prosecutor's office seized one of the 5 properties in Lima belonging to former President Ollanta Humala. He and his wife are being investigated for suspected illegal campaign contributions from Brazilian construction giant Odebrecht. This comes 1 week after the couple left preventive detention. In the Dominican Republic, over 3,000 people have been displaced due to the heavy rain that has hit the country in the past few days. The rainfall has also affected over 600 houses and caused the death of a 77-year-old man in the southern province of San Cristobal. Alerts have been established and in at least 25 provinces across the country. The National Forecast Agency said that moderate to heavy rain will continue tomorrow, accompanied by electric storms and gusts of wind. Panamanian President Juan Carlos Varela has proposed the creation of a constituent assembly. Varela announced his proposal during the official call for the general elections of May 5, 2019. The Minister of Presidency, Álvaro Alemán, will meet different sectors from the Panamanian society to explore the idea. The establishment of a constituent assembly was included in Varela's electoral program, but despite this, the opposition criticizes the idea and says it is another attempt to weaken Panama's democracy. And in Honduras, anti-government protests have been revived as opposition groups demonstrated against the government of Juan Orlando Hernández. Our correspondent Gilda Silvestrucci has more from the city of Tegucigalpa.
The protests against the government of Juan Orlando Hernández, organized by the Opposition Alliance, have resumed since May 1st. The Opposition Alliance coordinator, José Manuel Zelaya Rosales, said that this week there will be more protests and that this time they will be led by students who will march outside the National Congress to demonstrate against the high rates of poverty and unemployment that are hitting the country. They will also demonstrate against forced immigration and violence that is mainly affecting Honduras youth. For the next couple of weeks, the Opposition Alliance is also organizing more protests to reject last year's electoral process, described as fraudulent.
That was Gilda Silvestrucci from Tegucigalpa. The 37th session of the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, the ECLAC, is being held in Havana, Cuba, from the 7th to the 11th of May. Here's our correspondent Laura Prada with all the details.
Hello, yes, nice to greet you. Right now we are here at the Palace of Conventions of Havana, where is taking place the 37th session of the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC. And here on the first session of meetings, its Secretary, its President Alicia Bárcena, she was touching some topics important on the relation between ECLAC and Cuba and the importance of this group for Latin America and the Caribbean. On her speech in this first workshop, she was saying that ECLAC reaffirms its compromise to continue by Cuba's side on its free and legitimate path towards development. She also said that ECLAC will continue supporting Cuba on its presentation, its annual presentation to United Nations bloc about the affections that U.S. blockade caused to the island. On this matter, in her speech, she also said, highlighted the example of Cuba and the South-South cooperation. This meeting here in Cuba, this 37th session of ECLAC, will touch some really important topics to the region, to Latin America and the Caribbean, such as climate change and sustainable development. Today, later on in the afternoon, will be arriving to the island Antonio Guterres, the General Secretary of United Nations, who will attend tomorrow, Thursday, to the opening ceremony of this meeting. During this 36th session of ECLAC in Mexico in 2006, Cuba was unanimously elected as President pro tempore of this regional group, and this group is celebrating this year its 70 years of work. And I must say that on the second meeting, the second session of the ECLAC was celebrated here in Cuba in 1949. So this is the second time Cuba is the host of this ordinary period of sessions of the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. We'll continue this week here, sharing with you what happens.
That was Laura Prada from Havana. Preliminary results from Lebanon's parliamentary elections on Monday suggested that the Iran-backed Hezbollah group and its political allies would secure a simple majority. Hezbollah, along with allied groups and individuals, secured at least 67 seats, according to preliminary results. The number of Hezbollah lawmakers has remained at around 13, but candidates supported by the group or allied to it made significant gains. The leader of Lebanon's Hezbollah said that election results would guarantee the protection of the resistance.
There is a great political, parliamentary and moral victory for the resistance. The people of the resistance, the environment of the resistance, for the strategic choice, which protects the country, the sovereignty of the country. This was achieved in these elections, thanks to God.
And the results showed a strong support for the opposition, even in regions allied to the ruling party in Lebanon.
Lebanese voters showed their patriotic spirit during Sunday's parliamentary elections. These were not just simple elections, but a real referendum about the opposition resistance. Even before vote counting was complete, the results clearly showed an astonishing level of support for the opposition, especially in Baalbek Hermel in the northeast of Lebanon. The resistance also achieved important results in the south in various locations such as Beirut. The turnout in these elections came as a strong response to the international and local powers which tried to turn people against the Hezbollah-allied resistance. In comparison, the support for Prime Minister Saad Hariri's Western-backed Future movement was much smaller. They didn't get significant numbers in the different areas of the country, and not even in their allied regions. They did not only lack support in areas where they exert the most influence, but also lost representatives in the parliament. What likely came as the biggest shock for them came from Beirut, where the Hezbollah candidate got the biggest number of votes. This situation might force the Future movement to analyze what has happened. After some improvements and damages in different parts of the country, the Free Patriotic Party, an ally of Hezbollah, strengthened its positions in these elections. They increased their supporters' participation rates by 94%. A key source of relief among Lebanese citizens is the peaceful way in which these elections occurred, as the country has been plagued by violence with the war in Syria raging next door, but Israel is not happy with this result. The Jerusalem Post stated that it is not beneficial for the U.S. and its allies as Hezbollah is strengthening its hold on power in Lebanon.
The foreign ministers of Germany and France have pledged to stand by the Iran nuclear deal in the case of a United States withdrawal during a joint press conference in Berlin. German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas said that Germany, France, and the United Kingdom were dedicated to maintaining the deal, which they see as bringing more security to the world. Maas warned against a risk of escalation were the deal invalidated. May 12 is the deadline by which U.S. President Donald Trump either has to issue new waivers to suspend U.S. sanctions against Iran or exit the nuclear deal. Meanwhile, UK Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson is in the U.S. and met with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to appeal once more to Donald Trump not to scrap the deal. Speaking to U.S. network Fox News, he said Trump was right to see flaws in the deal, but, quote, Plan B does not seem to be, to me, particularly well developed at this stage. President Trump said in a tweet on Monday that he would announce his decision on whether to withdraw from the deal on Tuesday. Trump has threatened to withdraw from the deal, which provided Iran with relief from sanctions in exchange for limiting its uranium enrichment capacity, unless European signatories to the accord fix what he has called its shortcomings.
If what we want from the JCPOA will be provided and guaranteed by non-Americans, well, U.S.'s withdrawal will be okay. A problem has been removed from this deal. Someone will leave that has always caused trouble, and if all of what we have in mind is not fulfilled, we have our own plan, our legal and logical path, and our own programming.
Next, we go to Russia, where Vladimir Putin has been sworn in as president for a fourth term. He will remain in office for 6 more years after being re-elected in March. Putin took oath in front of some 5,000 guests who attended the ceremony at the Kremlin Hall. The Russian president pledged to continue to reverse the hardships experienced by the Russians since the fall of the Soviet Union.
As a head of state, I will do everything to increase the strength, prosperity and glory of Russia in order to meet society's demands and justify the hopes of our country's people. We know that in the 90s and at the beginning of the 2000s, along with long overdue and absolutely necessary historical changes, very severe hardships fell on the shoulders of our country and people. A lot, but not everything yet, has been restored. Not all the historical wounds have healed. Not all of our losses and difficulties have been overcome. And life constantly provides us with new challenges, new difficult tasks, and we have a lot of hard work ahead of us to solve them.
And with that story, we reach the end of this news brief. But this and many other stories, you can find them on our website, telesurtv.net/English. And you can also follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.
Our elections have an impact on